Okay, for the back facing, a couple of important things to remember. We do need to make sure that the side seams match up, so we can begin by putting a point there 2 inches down from the underarm point like we did before. Okay, we're going to draw our facing line and then deal with the dart when we get there, when we take our when we trace our pattern afterwards. So we can plan to have a point that we're aiming for. Let's say it's a 4 inches down from the back neckline, and we can begin drawing a line. If you want to add points along the way, that gives you locations to curve to. Again, if you also want to have 2 inches out from your armhole, you can estimate that. Okay, and then you can work to make this more smooth now, or you can do it later. I'm going to do a little bit of it now, a little bit of it later. And I think that was my dog vomiting in the background, so just dismiss that. I'm going to bring this down a little bit. Okay, so the location doesn't really matter. I want it to be squared off there. So, okay, so this looks reasonable. It's not perfect. We can do a lot more work on it, but let's trace it now and we can talk about how to manage that dart. You typically don't want a dart in your facing because it adds additional bulk there. Essentially, there's 2 darts in the same location, and that does not feel or look nice on your garment. So we can trace this first, and then we can make the pattern and talk about what to do with it. I could have also just marquee selected all of these, but here we are. And it looks like it's not going to work because we don't have it completely matching. So let's highlight all of our pieces instead. And then there's this little bit that we need to also highlight. And while I'm in trace, I can right click, trace as a pattern, and there it is now. Okay, so one thing you can do is simply close the dart. You can essentially take the value there and move it to both the neckline and the shoulder line. I believe that's what your book talks about. What I think is a bit more clean is if you rotate it to the other side of your facing. This gives a little bit more room in the facing, which is not a bad thing. It makes it less tight at this upper back, since this is kind of a weird amount of fabric right over your shoulder blades. So it gives a little bit of more room in there, but that might puff out your outer garment, which doesn't have that same fullness. So let's see how that works, how it looks. We're going to take our dart and we're going to rotate it. We're going to rotate it to a close distance on the other side of our facing. And we're going to aim it for that same location. And we're going to close it up in this direction. So since there is not much there, I'm going to show you how much we've added. It is not a lot of distance there. It has changed the shape of the shoulder, but that's what would happen if you folded that dart out and sewed it. So we've added a tiny bit of distance here. We can actually see what the value is if we edit the dart. It's about 1/4 inch. So that's not going to change too much on the facing itself. If that's troublesome to you, you can also change the curve a little bit or change the angle that we're coming in here at the side seam to make that a little bit smaller. But I always just wanted to show you what that looked like so we could, I'm going to undo that because I don't like how that did anything to my curve. And I'm just going to delete that point. Okay. These other points I can also delete or convert to curve points if it affects the curve. Okay. And once you've cleaned all this up, made it look a little bit nicer, and deleted or converted all those curve points, get rid of your baselines, you can then sew that together with the other all-in-one facing to create a very nice facing for your sleeveless dress.